The FPS genre has been around for decades, pioneered by the likes of Doom and Wolfenstein early on, before games like Halo and, of all things, Alien Resurrection finally nailed the feel of first-person shooters on console. These games walked so that Battlefield 2042 could run, or, well, fall down a flight of stairs into a vat of acid. God, that game was awful. If you want to see an accurate timeline of the progression of video games, just look at how FPS games have evolved over the years. From basic, pixelated experiences where you could barely tell which blob you were shooting at to massive productions now with mountains of detail, the FPS genre has improved immeasurably. But with the PS5 showcasing the best shooters you can buy, we're going to look at today, what are the best PS5 FPS games so far? For this list, we're looking at all the essential FPS games you can play on the PlayStation 5 that have been enhanced for the new hardware, which of course means that any PS4 games that are playable on PS5 are not eligible. We love Titanfall 2 as much as the next outlet, and we'll keep bashing the drum for Respawn to make Titanfall 3, oh yes we will, but until the second game gets updated for the PlayStation 5, it's not allowed here. I'm Daryl for Cultured Vultures, and here are the best PS5 FPS games you should be playing. Slap like and hit subscribe, and we will make sure that all your generic corridors are filled with explosive red barrels, waist-high cover, and tons of spare ammunition. We can't do anything about the legions of goons though, you're on your own there. Cyberpunk 2077. To see Cyberpunk 2077 go from a game that was removed from the PlayStation Store owing to the shocking state it released in, to then one of the better first-person experiences on the PlayStation 5 is pretty remarkable. While it might lean a bit more heavily into the RPG elements than some other games on this list, it is still a first-person shooter game at its core, unless you're like us and enjoyed running a melee build instead. Guess that would make it a first-person smacker or slasher, which is still an FPS game, technically. Anyway, Cyberpunk 2077 sees players creating their own playable character, or thug, in the form of V, who arrives in Night City and is seduced by the promise of infamy and riches. Everyone's journey through the city and its various factions, both criminal and corpo, will be different, but players can build their character to focus on a variety of different skills, although one thing is constant. Carving your legacy into Night City's history is pretty damned fun. It's a shame that most of the cosmetic options make you look like an absolute numpty, though. Deep Rock Galactic. Deep Rock Galactic's co-op extravaganza has been available for the longest time on the PC and subsequently Xbox, but it took until 2022 for it to become available on PS5. Thankfully, this would prove to be a blessing for the game, as years of updates and refinement turned Deep Rock Galactic into one of the best co-op games you can play. Without a doubt, Deep Rock Galactic earns its place as one of the best PS5 FPS games. Deep Rock Galactic sees players taking on the role of dwarves mining a planet for resources, but unfortunately you'll have to contend with hordes of vicious aliens hoping to turn you and your crew into lunch meat. Players choose from 4 playable classes, each with their own unique abilities, and complete a host of randomly generated missions with various objectives. There's a beauty in Deep Rock Galactic's simplicity, and because you can level up your classes for better weapons and upgrades, you'll be enjoying this one for a long, long time. Resident Evil Village. While it moved the series to first person, it would be hard to call Resident Evil 7 an FPS game. Sure, there's guns and monsters you can kill, but RE7 very much fits the mould of a survival horror game. It's moulded on games that focus more on scares than action. This joke is growing on you like mould. Do you get it yet? Thankfully for those looking for over-the-top shooters, Resident Evil Village drops most of the horror and focuses instead on carnage. The weapons are bigger, the enemies are more plentiful, and the fun is non-stop. Following on from the events of Resident Evil 7, you once again control Ethan Winters as he's made a life for himself in Europe with his wife and kid. Unfortunately, dark forces are at play and Ethan finds himself stranded in a hostile European village contending with vampires, lycans, weird creepy porcelain dolls, and, of course, your mum. Fortunately for Ethan, however, he gets access to an arsenal that would make Doom Guy blush, leading to a rollicking good time for all concerned. Unless you're a monster in this game, in which case, you're screwed, mate. Destiny 2. It's no secret that Bungie has found plenty of success with their Destiny series. Despite being years old at this point, Destiny 2 appears to be going from strength to strength as new content gets released, so long as you ignore the old content getting vaulted, which isn't great. While the solo experience of Destiny 2 leaves a lot to be desired, the game comes into its own once you've got friends to share the experience with. As a guardian for one of the last bastions of humanity, you'll travel around the galaxy completing missions and taking down aliens from across the universe looking to wipe you out. With lots of campaign missions, along with more challenging strikes and raids that require more players, Destiny 2 is a game that demands a lot from its players, but the rewards it offers make it one of the best PS5 FPS games you can play. Just be careful who you play it with though, as Destiny 2 has the ability to invade all aspects of your life. Social life, friends, work, all will become Destiny 2. Metro Exodus. The Metro series has been considered in the top tier of horror shooters, with its nuclear hellscapes proving to be a tense and gripping atmosphere to tell some wonderful human stories. That's not really surprising given that it's based on a book series, but Metro manages to take the original literature and create a series of games that entertain as much as they horrify. Metro Exodus is the conclusion of that series, and it is a brilliant finale. Like previous entries, Exodus sees players in the shoes of Artem, disillusioned with how life in the Moscow metro system has become, and convinced that life must exist outside of Russia in this post-nuclear war world. Artem is resolved to leave Moscow behind to find greener pastures. Joined by various cohorts, you'll travel across the continent in search of land that's been untouched by the ravages of war. You'll just have to make your way through hordes of cannibals, mutants, and irradiated wastelands in order to get there. Hardly a relaxing train vacation, is it? Borderlands 3. The co-op first-person loot shooter genre has exploded over the past decade or so, but the originator of it all was Borderlands. Years later, it would take Borderlands 3 to come along and reclaim the crown for the series, offering the best action, graphics, and gunplay the series has ever seen. Sure, the comedy might lean a little too much into cringe, so much so that you'll want to mute your TV, but the gameplay is brilliant. As usual, you control Vault Hunters who have travelled to Pandora in search of riches. However, this time you're dealing with Troy and Tyrene Calypso, twin rulers of the Children of the Vault. This violent cult is looking for a great vault which is believed to offer incredible power, and that simply won't do, so it's on you and your friends to take them out before it's too late. With 4 different playable characters, each with their own unique abilities, Borderlands 3 offers tons of replayability. It also offers tons of reasons to turn your audio down, and I know we already mentioned it, but it's such an important point that we felt it worth mentioning twice. DEATHLOOP. While there's been plenty of games in recent years that have made use of the time loop mechanic, there's none quite like DEATHLOOP. Arcane have made their name creating excellent first-person experiences, and while Dishonored and Prey are worth your time, DEATHLOOP is a proper shooter. No mimics hiding in random office stationery to jump scare you, and no game shouting at you for killing too many people, just pure, unadulterated carnage. That's if you actually use the guns anyway, given the incredible powers you can play around with. DEATHLOOP features Colt, who's trapped in a time loop on an island filled with violent partygoers looking to end Colt's life. In order to break the time loop, Colt will have to kill the 8 people who are maintaining the loop forever, but unfortunately for Colt, one of the 8 people is Juliana, a trained assassin who's hunting Colt down across loops. You get to play as Colt attempting to break the loop, or Juliana out to kill Colt. For people who love spoiling everyone else's fun, playing as Juliana makes DEATHLOOP worth the price of admission alone. Apex Legends. Multiplayer shooters have evolved over the years from just simple team deathmatch games, with the massive battle royale genre allowing players to test their dominance against dozens of other players at once. It's fitting that Apex Legends has the name that it does, because it's the apex of the battle royale genre. If you want to feel the thrill of victory and defeat, Apex Legends is the best game out there, and it's even free to play, which is just the icing on the cake. Apex Legends features a unique roster of characters, each with their own special powers and abilities. Players form teams of 3 to try and survive against up to 19 other teams and become the Apex champions, with different weapons scattered across the map. Of course, if the Battle Royale mode is too much for you, the 3v3 Arenas mode offers faster deathmatch inspired gameplay, but both modes definitely help Apex Legends qualify as one of the best PS5 FPS games you can play. Just don't be surprised if you get steamrolled by the 12-year-olds who came out of the womb cracked, chugging Monster energy drinks by the gallon. You know exactly the type we mean. Rainbow Six Siege. Is Rainbow Six Siege the most casual, friendly multiplayer shooter ever made? Absolutely not. Trying to play Siege in 2022, especially as a new player, is going to get worse before it gets better, but the fact remains that Siege is the best FPS multiplayer you can play and one of the best FPS games out on PS5. If you're looking for a high skill, high reward multiplayer game, Rainbow Six Siege is the perfect choice. Like Apex Legends, Rainbow Six Siege features unique characters, each with their own abilities and weaponry. Players are split between attackers and defenders, with each taking turns to defend heavily fortified positions. The gameplay of Siege is cerebral, slow-paced and tactical, but the reward for nailing some sweet headshots and clutching victory from the jaws of defeat is unparalleled. You'll likely get beaten badly in the early going, but defeat makes victory taste all the sweeter, right? Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal is nothing short of the perfect FPS. It's a bold claim, but one that Doom Eternal rips and tears into until that claim is nothing more than a fine puddle of blood and guts. As single player FPS games go, few are as intense or as challenging as Doom Eternal, but if you're willing to step up to the challenge, Doom Eternal is worth it, even if it's just for the soundtrack that makes you want to suplex the devil himself. Yes, we are still sad about the fact that it seems that the OST will never make it onto Spotify. Leave the tissues at the door. A thank you. Doom Eternal puts the players in the power armor of Doom Guy once again as he continues his one-man crusade against the forces of hell and everything else that stands in his way. The gameplay builds on 2016's Doom with its fast-paced violence and non-stop infusions of adrenaline, but the game offers plenty of depth with regards to its abilities to encourage the player to use the full extent of Doom Guy's arsenal. Without a doubt, Doom Eternal is the best first-person shooter on PS5. Maybe anywhere. And there you have it, that is our list of the best first-person shooter games on the PlayStation 5. Did you agree with the list? Is there anything you felt we missed out that you would have added in? Let us know in the comments down below, we're always keen to hear back from you. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the content coming to the channel in future. Also check the social media on screen now and the website culturedvultures.com for the full written version of this article and many, many more. Between all of that, hopefully we'll catch you in the next one, but until then, caw.